You're like, whoa.
Yeah. So your human body and your brain and all that, I mean, just the chemicals and everything working together, it's so crazy and does so many transformations
Yeah.
that, you know, a lot of it people just don't experience. You could
Yeah.
live your whole life and never experience that.
Oh yeah.
And so the closer you get, the more you push it, and then you need to feel that same rush to get an adventure and excitement again. But it is cool, I mean, doing that, but it takes a toll on your body, on your mind,
Yeah.
that living that lifestyle.
Definitely.
And health, now that we're all, you know, out of the military, getting out of the military, you start thinking about that. And I saw this quote that said, a man with his health has 1,000 wishes. A man without his health only has one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that's one thing that, you know, I want to talk to Dash about, because he really inspired me to start recording stories and podcasting and hanging out together. And because at the end of the day, we've all lived crazy lives of adventure and base jumping and doing cool stuff, but what if you die tomorrow and then nobody ever knows any of it? Sometimes that's okay. There's a lot of stories nobody needs to know. But sometimes it's like, you know, I want to be able to pass down some pretty cool facts about me and some stories. And I want my kids to know that I wasn't always just yelling at them to do their homework or clean their rooms, that we were cool and we had friends and all that stuff. And so that's one of the reasons why I was like, man, life is so short. So short. And you just get a glimpse. So that feeling, that rush when you jumped off the bridge is when you think life is going to be over. And you're like, oh shit.
Yeah.
This is different.
Dude, and it makes you think though.
Oh, it changes you as a person.
Yeah.
And that's
more important.
Yeah. And so that's what I want to talk to Dash about, is his journey, healthy, active military member to being on the verge of death many times and going through life-changing situations that a lot of people cannot endure. So that being said, Dash, I'll turn it over to you. Just tell me, because I don't know the story, so just talk to me like you're just telling me. You don't have to worry about anything like that. But I just want to know, so one day you're normal, and then what happens?
One day I'm normal, and then the next day I'm still normal, I think.
Still normal?
But,
okay.
According to the doctors, not so much.
Yeah, so what happened? Did you feel like a pain somewhere, or?
No, so it was September of 2017. We're actually getting ready to go back on deployment.
Okay.
We're doing all our pre-deployment preps. Everything's packed out. You guys know the deal. You got your bags loaded out. You got all your snacks and your goodies. Your video game system's packed out. You got your movie list going. So mindset's ready. Like, all right, I'm gonna hit the road. Gonna do this pump. And I just found out my HAPS card was gonna expire while I was over on deployment.
Okay.
And not a big deal. So just walk down the street, go get a simple chest X-ray. HAPS is our.
Yeah, I was gonna say, let's talk about HAPS for a second. Yeah. And it's high altitude preparedness school, is it, or
Exactly.
Okay, so basically you have to understand what your body's going through when you go up to altitude, which we do for skydiving. That's why I wanted to talk about that jumping story. A lot of people, when you go up to about, say, 13,000 feet, your body needs oxygen, or you can become hypoxic. Hypoxia, it comes on slow sometimes it comes on very quickly, but basically you can start noticing different things that are happening to your body up at altitude. Maybe your vision turns black and white. Maybe you keep saying the same thing over and over. Maybe you start seeing rainbows or something like that, or you could pass out. We've all experienced it, and they force you to experience it. You can look up, what is the chamber called?
The bear chamber, or the.
It's basically you're in an
chamber?
altitude chamber at these schools for HAPS, and they have YouTube videos that are so crazy. So if you see a human with no oxygen, they have one particularly of a pilot where he's in the altitude chamber, and they keep holding up a playing card, King of Hearts, Two of Spades, Jack of Spades, I think is the last one, because there's one particular, and then he just keeps saying the same one over and over, like Jack of Spades, and they're holding up different cards, and his body is just in survival mode, and he's just going Jack, and you're supposed to hit a button. You're supposed to be able to recognize all the symptoms of hypoxia before you get hypoxic and pass out, and you're a liability at that point and not an asset. And so you have to recognize whatever symptoms your body particularly produces and hit a button. So you have to be very self-aware. And actually, that's something why I wanted to ask you, is because a lot of our job requirements cause us to be very aware of our body. We're always working out. We're always doing training. You have to start noticing small things before they become big. And that's why when you're checking for things like cancer and all that kind of stuff, a lot of us think one day I'll just feel a lump, or one day I'll just, start coughing up blood or something. And so that's, super scary. But I wanted everyone to know, especially with these military, terminology, how important some of the training and some of the medical, screenings that we have to go through. So because of that,
it's life-saving.
Chest x-ray.
So I go in, get my chest x-ray, looking like a stud. I was running 5.5-minute miles for at least 13 miles.
Okay.
So I was in the peak of my physical performance.
Is that true? You were really running that?
Yep. I was actually starting to train for an Ironman.
Holy shit.
I wanted to do my first Ironman. I want to make qualifications to get back to the Big Island, where I was born and raised. I was born and raised in Oahu, but I wanted to get back to the motherland and start doing races. So I was super pumped. Started biking a bunch. Go in, get my chest x-ray, kind of high-five the guy out while I was just walking out. And that changed the rest of my life to where I'm at now.
What did they see on the x-ray?
So I did the x-ray on a Friday with no intentions of having any follow-up. Deployment was supposed to be a month from that x-ray, and showed up to work on Monday, kind of high-fiving the guys, getting ready to go about the daily business, and opened up my email, and just found a crazy amount of email traffic from medical, from higher-up chain of command, from Portsmouth, and it was like, so-and-so needs to go to Portsmouth and needs to go to thoracic surgery immediately.
Holy shit.
And I was like, okay, what's going on here? Like, what is this? And so I go and talk to my leadership. I'm like, hey, are you guys tracking any of these emails? And they're like, oh, you need to go down to medical. Like, we don't know, we can't tell you this stuff. We don't understand it. So I was like, all right. Starting to get a little jitters, starting to get a little freaked out. No big deal, stuff happens. So I go down to medical, and the instant I walk through this door and they get eyes on me, they just stop. They just stopped everything. They kind of pulled me. They had people in line before me, and there was other people in the waiting room waiting to be seen, and I walked in, and they just stopped. They opened the door, and they're like, Dash, go ahead and come back here. We're going to sit down and talk to you. And from that moment, I knew something was up. Didn't know what, but I had an idea that it wasn't good. So sat down with my medical provider, and I'll never forget, he looked at me, and he's like, listen, we get this all the time, so don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. They found something in your lung. Just go get it checked out. Don't worry about it. I was like, and when you tell someone like that not to worry about it, I think it's kind of hypocritical or non-productive, or you basically
saying don't worry about it, it's gonna make them worry about it.
You just planted a nuke inside of me of worry.
Right.
Whereas like if you just laid it out straight and be like, hey man, this could be a big deal. Let's go get it figured out. I guess the operator mentality that we have is like, okay, here's the enemy. How do we engage it? Let's do it. But when you tell somebody kind of like half-heartedly, like, oh yeah, something here, something there, I don't know.
Yeah.
Then I'm like, oh shit. Well, all right. So I end up going to Portsmouth.
Don't sugarcoat it.
Yeah, just lay it straight.
Tell it how it is.
Don't be a used car salesman. Go to Portsmouth, and then I got more runaround. It's like, hey, you're 29 years old. You're super fit. There's no way this could be the big casino. but you do have some type of mass growing in your right lung. It's like, okay. And then they started going on, are you symptomatic? Do you have all these symptoms? Do you have family history? Trying to get in the weeds of it. And I'm a foster child.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, I can't really lay back on my family history because I don't have much of it. So I don't know if my family had cancer or any of that jazz. And that kind of did not play to my advantage because that led on to a bunch of exploratory surgeries to be able to figure out what was going on.
Yeah.
So in 1 month, I did 4 exploratory surgeries. One, they jammed rods down my nose into my lung, filled it up with water, and they have to do that with you awake. So they shut down your right side, and they have cameras in there, and they got this little claw grabber, and he's getting in there, and he's trying to grab tissue, and he pulls all his equipment out, and I'm just laying there. I'm like, "What did you get it?" He's like, "Unfortunately, we couldn't reach it." It's like, okay. So the next week, they're like, all right, we're going to go down to the CT room. They're going to jam some rods behind your back into your lung. We're going to try and suck out some of the mass that you got in there, see what it is. But don't worry about it because you're so young, you're so fit. There's no way this is cancer. It's probably they were thinking it was some type of like a mold or some type of fungus kind of deal, or maybe it was a cold that I had that I was still like my immune system was trying to wrap around. So they weren't concerned about it, which concerned me because I was super concerned about it. I was thinking about deploying. I was thinking about my family. I was looking at my kids, and I was like, "What? Someone just lay down some heavy news to me. Let's just get this over with, you know." So did the next surgery. I was laying down on a table, and the surgeon started going in, jammed this giant rod right underneath my scapula, through my rib cage, and you can feel him press through your thoracic space. You can feel him get into your actual cavity, and then the hard part is you're laying there. He puts this rod in, but he can't poke in through your lung yet. You actually have to inflate your lung into the needle,
so you have to breathe real hard.
So he's like, are you ready? And I'm like, I thought we were done. I've got a giant rod in my back. What do you mean? Am I ready? He's like, I need you to take a deep inhale while we're taking X-ray film footage of where this rod is, so that we can get the actual mass. And I remember I was preparing to do this big inhale, and I could feel that needle. I've never been able to feel my lungs before. I don't know if anyone can, but I remember I felt this pierce. I felt like a poke or of something I've never felt before, and I stopped. I didn't breathe. I stopped breathing, and I let out my air. And he's like, I know it's painful. There's no way to numb that part of your body. There's no.
But he didn't say, I need you to breathe as hard as you can. We have to puncture it.
That's what he said.
Okay, but
Yeah.
as soon as you felt it, you stopped.
As soon as I felt it, I was like, this shit just got real.
Fuck, dude.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. And he's like, listen, once we get in there, the hard part will be over, and we can start doing what we need to do. But we have to initially get through this. So I kind of just sucked it up, did the old Leroy Jenkins call, and just I pumped up as much air as I can get, and I felt that pierce go through, and I felt like a pop, it wasn't even a pop. I just felt something that wasn't right.
A puncture,
and I knew he was in there. And then I get him. He comes back to me. He puts his head next to my head because I'm laying down kind of sideways, and he's like, "We missed. We gotta do it again." Ended up doing that 10 times. He missed 10 times. Finally, he got in there, and by the time he got in there, I was laying down. I was sedated, but I was only sedated enough because they needed me to be able to talk. They needed to be able to explain, and they needed to be able to talk to me and give me commands of like what they needed me to do.
Yeah.
And the nurse was looking at me as she was pumping me full of drugs. I kept looking at her. I was like, you can go ahead and give me a little bit more. And what ended up happening is I just started coughing blood up on the table. So he punctured it so many times that my lung was now starting to fill up with